You did everything right. Not almost everything, everything. You were consistent when they needed consistency, present when they needed presence, patient in ways you didn't even know you were capable of. And then they left. Not for someone kinder, not for someone more successful, not for someone who loved them better. They left for someone who, by every measure you could see, was less. Less attentive, less present, less everything you spent yourself being. And the loss was painful, but the confusion was unbearable. Because this wasn't the first time. Different person, different year, same ending. You showed up fully. They left anyway. And every time it happened, the people around you said the same things. You're too good for them. They didn't deserve you. The right person will see your worth. And you nodded. You smiled. You waited for those words to land somewhere real. They didn't. Underneath the reassurance, something quieter was growing. Not anger, not bitterness, doubt. The kind that doesn't arrive loudly. It just rewrites things slowly. Until one day you catch yourself thinking, maybe being good isn't actually what people want. Maybe what I offer isn't what anyone stays for. Maybe there's something wrong with me that I can't see, but they all can. That last thought, that's the one that stays. That's the one this video is actually about. Here's what psychology says about this. And it's going to be uncomfortable, not because it's harsh, but because it has nothing to do with your worth. When someone consistently chooses a partner who seems objectively less stable, less kind, less present, it almost never comes down to comparison. It comes down to a nervous system following a script it learned a long time ago. Psychologists call it intermittent reinforcement. Think about a slot machine. It doesn't pay out every time. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Never on a schedule you can predict. And because of that uncertainty, the brain doesn't lose interest. It becomes obsessed. The variable reward doesn't just keep you playing, it rewires what wanting feels like. Now apply that to love. Someone who is inconsistent, who pulls close then disappears, who is warm one day and distant the next, creates that same neurological loop. The uncertainty reads as chemistry. The anxiety reads as aliveness. The relief when they come back hits harder than any consistent warmth ever could. And you, with your steadiness, your showing up, your predictable kindness, you never triggered that loop. Not because you were doing it wrong, because you were doing something their nervous system didn't recognize as love yet. Here's where it gets harder. That nervous system pattern, the one that chases chaos, the one that mistakes anxiety for attraction, it was usually written early. In homes where love was conditional. In childhoods where affection arrived on someone else's schedule. In early relationships where the people who made you work the hardest were the ones who made you feel the most. Nobody chooses that template, but almost everyone who has it will spend years trying to fill it with exactly the wrong kind of person, while the right kind stands close, wondering what they're missing. You weren't competing with someone worse than you. You were competing with a wound that existed before you ever walked into the room. But knowing that doesn't stop the images. You still remember watching them light up for someone who canceled on them twice, who never asked how their day was, who made them cry more than made them laugh. And you remember every time you showed up, every time you noticed the small things, every time you stayed, and you wonder what any of it counted for. That's the cruelest part of this specific kind of loss. There's no breakup logic to hold on to. No, I should have done this differently. No clean story about where it went wrong. You weren't rejected for loving badly. You were replaced while loving well. And there's no roadmap for that grief. Nobody teaches you how to mourn something that never officially existed, a future you built quietly by yourself that they never asked for and never knew you were building. So most people do one of two things. They become less. They start withholding manufacturing distance, trying to become the kind of person who doesn't show up so completely, hoping that if they can just create a little uncertainty, the next person will stay. Or they become more, giving harder, loving louder, trying to make themselves so undeniably present that leaving becomes impossible. Both responses come from pain. Both make complete sense. And both of them are still living inside the belief that the problem was you. It wasn't. Here's what's worth sitting with. The people who kept choosing chaos weren't choosing it because it was better. They were choosing it because it was familiar. And familiar and good can feel like opposites. When your nervous system was trained on the wrong one first, safety can feel like distance. Consistency can feel like boredom. Real love can feel foreign in a way that the brain reads as wrong when it's actually the first thing that's been right in years. That's not a reflection of your value. That's a description of unfinished work that had nothing to do with you and everything to do with what they hadn't faced yet. Trust and desire are built differently. One is earned through consistency, the other is sparked through honesty. And the version of you that kept showing up, that was consistency. Real, rare, quietly extraordinary. But here's what nobody tells you. The people most capable of that kind of love are often the ones who've been offering it to people still living on the surface. Not because they lack judgment, because they genuinely believe that if they love someone clearly enough, that person will eventually learn to receive it. Sometimes they do, often they don't. Not yet. So maybe nothing changes tomorrow. Maybe the pattern shows up again. Or maybe the next time you feel yourself starting to shrink, starting to pull back, starting to manufacture distance so someone finds you easier to want, you'll pause. And remember that the right person won't need you to be less consistent. They'll be someone who has done enough of their own work to finally know what to do with someone who actually shows up. You were never too much. You were just giving depth to people still living on the surface. You've ever been replaced by someone who offered less, not despite everything you gave, but somehow because of it, drop one word in the comments. Replaced. No explanation, no story. You don't have to justify what you felt. Just know this comment section is full of people who already understand because they're still carrying it too. Subscribe if this found you at the right moment. There's a lot more of this to unpack, and something tells me you've been carrying more than you've said out loud.